What is up, YouTube? It is Mr. Rolldaddy here, and on this episode of Mr. Rolldaddy's Neighborhood of Sports, hate is in the air, and hate is just all over the air right now. Why? Because it is Hate Week, commonly dubbed that throughout the state of Iowa when my Iowa Hawkeyes are playing the in-state rival Iowa State Cyclones. This is a very intense rivalry. It's seriously one of the best and one of the most intense rivalries in the entire nation. If you understand how serious this rivalry is and how big it gets. So, in the meantime, yes, of course, I'm wanting for my Hawkeyes to win, but I'm going to do my analysis on how I believe they can win. And again, before I get going into this, I do just want to remind you that all views expressed in this video are of my own. It does not represent the University of Iowa's or any particular coach, player, any media outlet, any university employee, or any other person or entity that's affiliated. I'm a just for fun sports analyst, and all views that I present are of my own. I'm doing this as a fun project for the school that I love. But let's get started here. All right. See the words on the screen. Don't need to go too much further with that. It's a CyHawk game, and just like last week, I am putting the picture of me after Iowa beat Penn State last year, hoping this will be my mood Saturday night. But anyways, let's get to the real thing. Now, here is the basic roll key. Again, if you tuned in last week, this is my main and big message for the game. Now, it's pretty simple this week. Iowa's offense must be able to execute. This especially proves to be true once the Hawkeyes get into the red zone. Now, I mean, obviously, it was not a great offensive game last week for the Hawkeyes. And, that was the first time, as far as I know, where I've seen it. A team at the high school, college, or professional level score 7 points, but just out of 2 safeties and a field goal, and more so, win by doing so. Now, of course, as a Hawkeye, I am very happy to take that Hawkeye victory. But the offense has to show some promise this week. It can't be like that every week. We've got to have the offense show promise. Now, another huge thing is both teams from last season's game, a lot of key players have been lost. Tyler Linderbaum is no longer there for the Hawkeyes, and Charlie Jones and Tyrone Tracy, they transferred out and both went to Purdue. So those are both pretty big losses. Of course, defensive back Dane Belton is no longer available, and he was a key player, made some impact plays throughout last season that is no longer going to be here. And then Caleb Shudak, he walked into a hostile environment as our place kicker last year, and yet he still had a pretty good outing. He made a few key kicks and made all of his extra points and overcame an early field goal miss in the game. So he's definitely one of our key players that is no longer going to be in this game. And for Iowa State, obviously their biggest loss is running back Breece Hall. He really did quite well for them, and he definitely scared me heading into last game, knowing how well he can score. And other additional losses for the Cyclones are tight end Charlie Kohler, quarterback Brock Purdy, who started many games over the course of a few seasons, and I've heard a lot of wide receivers are gone as well. And I know one of their starting offensive linemen, Sean Foster, who grew up not too far away from me, he graduated and is no longer on the team from what I saw. So there's a lot of losses that both teams have to overcome in terms of player personnel. And that last point is simple. This is a good test for many players involved. They're replacing guys who were consistent in the lineup for quite a few years, and now it's their chance to shine. All right. Now, the offense roll keys. Now again, remember, if you tuned in last week, this is the part where I see what my main thoughts are for the Hawkeyes on offense and what I think they have to do well in order to win this game. So, my first offensive role key is simple. You just don't worry about last weekend's performance when preparing for this week's game. It's in the past. Last week is done, and we won. Job was done well because we won, but still, of course, things have to be better, and the offense has to remember, they're playing the Cyclones, not the media who says the other things. They are playing the Cyclones here. And look, if you're looking too much at a previous game, you are not going to move forward. Just don't worry about it. Last week is done, and we won. 1-0. Just get better. Don't look back at last week's performance. And don't listen to what the naysayers are talking about. Just move forward to this game. Now, second thing, Iowa State's got a pretty good defensive lineman in Will McDonald IV. And I'd just say, plan for him to handle and do anything. Just double team him when needed. Don't allow him to get pressure off of the edge. Now, from what I was reading, he does line up at multiple spots on the defensive line, which is an advantage for many teams, but of course a disadvantage for the offense when you've got a good defensive lineman that knows how to line up at many different spots along that defensive line and does so very effectively. If he's an edge rusher, don't allow him to come off of the tackles. Don't let him get the pressure. And then if he's inside, you got to double team him whenever you need to. He's also a pretty good run stopper. Just neutralize him. You cannot ignore this guy, but you've got to find a way to play around him. Now, another guy who also has the suffix of the fourth. Well, yes, wide receiver Arlen Bruce IV. You got to get him free. Now, he was a good player in last week's game. I really liked what I saw from him. And he had some good performances last year as well, but last week gave me some hope that he can become one of the key players for this offense, mainly because of his speed. Take Arlen Bruce's speed to his advantage. I mean, he can do so much on that offense. You can run him deep, you can give him the ball in a jet sweep, you can give him a screen pass, short pass, however you can think of using him. Find more ways to give him the ball because he is a versatile player and he's very elusive when he's in the open field. Just find a way to get Arlen Bruce IV the open field in as many ways as you can and in any way possible. Now, I'm going to say another big thing. Run many different routes with tight end Sam Laporta. Look, Iowa's called tight end university for a reason. We've seen a lot of great players at the position produce well in college and then eventually at the professional level in recent years. Not many schools have the tight end history and tradition that Iowa does, and it really can make a big difference in the end. Now, just use the tight end position to the advantage in the passing game. Run as many routes as possible with Sam Laporta. Get him all over the field so he's putting the defense on wheels. Just get him free as well because tight ends make a big difference for Iowa in games like this. Now, this one may be a little controversial, and I know some may argue about this, but utilize some quarterback runs. I mean, Petrus, he did surprisingly decent enough on a few runs last weekend. I remember he ran for a couple of first downs, and he did just enough to get a first down. So if your gut's saying, hey, if you want to have Spencer keep the ball and just get the first down that way, just let him do it. If you think it's just better to run for a first down than throw, listen to the instinct. Now, another big thing is don't allow linebacker O'Ryan Vance to make any big plays. Now, here's the thing. He's got experience as a good defender. He's been there for a little bit. And he, arguably after McDonald, is their best playmaker on defense. He's a good defender, has the experience. Just get on him. Don't let this guy slow down the offense. Just don't let him make plays. I mean, he's not as big of a threat as Adam Bach was last week, but just get on him. Don't let him slow down. He's got the experience as a good defender. Now, another big thing. Throw on some first downs. I mean, Iowa, I've seen this ever since I became a student in 2017. So many first downs, Iowa turns to the running game. Now, yes, I know you've got to run on first down, and if you want to run first down's a great down to do so, but look, confuse the Cyclones. Throw on some of those first downs here, but use many different types of throws, like throw it deep on first down every once in a while, like last year's game against Iowa versus Penn State. The game-winning touchdown was on a first down throw. And that ended up being the difference in the game. Gave Iowa the lead in the fourth quarter. Never looked back. Now, let Spencer throw on some first downs here, or Padilla, or whoever it is at quarterback. Throw on some of those first downs. Confuse them. Keep them guessing. Iowa runs a lot on first downs, and the defense has to keep guessing what they are going to do. Now, last thing. Iowa's got to build some quick legs, and then to the clock. There's a 10-plus point lead. Iowa needs to mix and match up the runs. So, run inside, run outside, jet sweeps, reversals, draws. I'll run a lot of those different types of run plays after a 10-plus point lead, because remember, that is going to eliminate how much time the Cyclones have to come back. Last season, that worked pretty well. Iowa just ran the ball well, and especially after the touchdown that put Iowa ahead by 2 scores, it just chewed off so much clock, got them an easy field goal, and it gave very limited time for a Cyclones comeback. Do that again if there is a sustainable enough lead. Don't think that they are going to get back into the game. Don't let them think that. Now, we're going to the defensive role keys, which is the same thing except for defense. So, they've got a new quarterback, Hunter Deckers. Play him on every down. You don't know what he might do, where he might throw to, who he might throw to, or he's a runner. He may try to run. Be prepared for anything from Hunter Deckers. Now, another thing that I may suspect. The Hawkeyes should look for a more wide open passing game than what was seen last season. Again, Charlie Kohler and Breece Hall, their stud tight end and running back from last year, they are gone. And this now is going to lead some more availability for Iowa State to run different formations, some of which may open up more passing lanes and more things in the passing game. And if they've got a lot of inexperienced guys, which what I read, they've only got one returning receiver from last year's game, they can do anything they want with their new guys because they can become unpredictable running a bunch of plays with new guys. Just be prepared for a more wide open passing game than what we saw last season. The Hawkeyes need to be alert for anything that might happen in the pass game and any different formations that might be run. All right, now, have a unique strategy against their best wide receiver and entire offensive line, Xavier Hutchinson. He's their best threat in the passing game right now. Press him. Give him less time to break free on his routes. But when you're doing that, I would say send 2 rushers in with a bull rush, because this will push their offensive lineman back, And then it'll force Deckers to make hurried throws, which for an inexperienced QB doesn't always pan out well. And then if you're also giving Hutchinson less time to break free in the open, and that's really going to be great for field position, turnover on downs, getting a third down stop, and whatnot. Just give Hutchinson less time to break free in that open field. Have bull rush moves that push the O-lineman back and force Deckers to make hurried throws. Now, this one helped Iowa quite a bit last year. Force the points off of the turnovers. Last year's game, we saw Iowa score on a fumble recovery, and then many points were from turnovers as well. So, utilize the defense to get some yards and hopefully some points for this offense. It was a big advantage for Iowa in the game last year. Sure could be this year. Now, again, like I said, the Cyclones don't have a ton of experienced guys out there in their offense. So use it to the advantage of the defense. There aren't many players that have been in that lineup, and this is not an ideal defense that inexperienced guys on offense would want to face up against, because it's been well known how good Iowa's defense can be. And the big thing is they have to make the Cyclones make those mistakes. Like, find ways to make them make mistakes. And then execute on them. Be unpredictable. Because, again, if you're going up against a pretty inexperienced offense, you're going to want them to find ways to make mistakes that a more experienced team probably wouldn't make too often, and just find their weaknesses on that offense and exploit them. Now, the X Factor Rolldaddy. Now, some other factors that I may believe may play a part. First off, Iowa's at home. Yes, I get Iowa's won quite a bit of the last few CyHawk games and Ames, but still, sold out Kinnick crowd. I mean, I've been to so many games at Kinnick Stadium. So many have been sold out, if not nearly sold out, and again, every game this year is sold out. It's a huge advantage, but the big thing is, unlike some of these other games, the crowd really, really gets in to the CyHawk game. They're really going to be all in it, and the crowd just, if they do their part, when Iowa's on defense, Iowa should take every advantage their crowd gives them. But another thing, Hawkeyes must recognize how much the Cyclones want it here. It's been since 2014 since Iowa State last took home the CyHawk Trophy. And there's definitely got to be a burning desire in those guys for them to get this trophy. I mean, so many players went all 4 to 5 years without getting the CyHawk Trophy during their college playing days. But still, Hawkeyes need to realize that, hey, that's going to be in them, and they're going to play aggressively. So the Hawkeyes also must play aggressively and be prepared. Just fight with the enemy all along. These guys want it, and Iowa can't let them want it. Iowa's got to want it more than the Cyclones do. Because the CyHawk game, it's a matter of wills. And look, I want this trophy staying in Iowa City. The Hawkeyes want this trophy staying in Iowa City, and I believe there are ways it can happen. But it's pretty simple. There's a want factor in the Cyclones, but the Hawkeyes, they also have to have that want factor, but that want factor is something they've got to have more than the Cyclones. In the end, if Iowa wins this game, which I still believe is something that can happen, and I believe it will happen, there's going to be a great sense for Iowa, because they're going to still have continued domination in the state of Iowa by winning the game again. And not many teams can go this many years beating a hated rival. And there's very few teams that do this. And Iowa's going to want to have that want for the feeling that shows that there's so much continued domination against the Cyclones, who is such a bitter rival. You got to want to continue to want to dominate them. That is a big point for Iowa. Just want it more than the Cyclones do. And I want it more than the Cyclones do. Players got to show the same. Now, here is where I get to Rolldaddy's Big Roll of the Week. This is a surprise tactic, trick play, or an interesting strategy that I would utilize this week if I was an Iowa coach that could catch the opponent off guard and give an advantage to the Hawkeyes here. So, I thought about this one kind of long and hard in a way. And now, the big strength for Iowa is their defense, but when Iowa loses, sometimes it's because teams have figured out their defense and in a way, and I thought of an interesting defensive strategy that the Hawkeyes may want to implement. So this team that I played in the state championship game in high school, they have utilized this strategy on defense, and they did against us in a previous playoff game 3 years before our state championship game, though as far as I know, they never did against us in the state championship game. But still, they even that year, they still used that against a few other opponents, and it worked pretty well because of the really unique aspects of this defensive strategy that this team uses. I haven't seen this in the college and professional level, or because I don't think this is really utilized on those levels compared to high school. But anyways, radar defense. So what this is it's a defensive scheme where all 11 guys are in 2-point stances and they're lined up anywhere on the field. They can go wherever they want, and they're all in 2-point stances. No one knows what they're going to do. And now, again, this is going to make Iowa's great defense a lot less predictable if they do this strategy. And remember, I've been saying the Cyclones have a rather inexperienced offense. By pulling off such an interesting defensive strategy, such as having all 11 guys in 2-point stances during various times of the game, that may confuse the hell out of Iowa State, and they may freak out. And I remember heading into that state championship game against this team, we were told some teams freak out when this team does that radar defense where just all 11 guys are lined up anywhere on the field. They're in 2-point stances and no one knows what they're going to do. Now, again, if Iowa goes down early in the game, run that early as a means of not allowing Iowa State to get more points. Now, I'd run this defense sporadically. However, I would say if Iowa gets a 14-plus point lead, run it as much as possible because, again, confuse the hell out of Iowa State. Don't let them know what you're going to do, and don't let them think what you are going to do, because this defensive scheme, while it's rare and it's just very different from what you see. It's got some advantage to it, and it would ultimately keep Iowa State guessing in the end. So, I will tell you that. All right. I appreciate y'all watching. I know this video was a lot longer than last week's, but there was so much more I had to touch up on. You can't ever take this game lightly, and this game divides the whole state of Iowa. This is, like I said in the beginning of this video, this is really one of the most huge rivalries in college football, and some people just don't know how huge this game is. But again, all I want is for Iowa to just continue their dominance against Iowa State. There's a good feeling when the Hawkeyes get this trophy, as I've experienced it 5 times, and it's happened even the few years before I became a Hawkeye. The want just has to be there for the Hawkeyes, and I believe there is a way that the Iowa Hawkeyes can pull this win off. There's ways it can get done, and there's ways that it will be done. Oh boy. I've been talking a lot, I know. Well, I need to catch my breath, but I'm going to be signing off, and I thank you all so much for watching this video today. I'm hoping for a great Hawkeye victory, and again, I'm always willing to take a Hawkeye victory, no matter how small it is. If it's last week's game again, or if it's an offensive shootout, I'll take any Hawkeye win. And I'm thinking it will happen. Have a good day.